Real quickly, would you agree that Real America's Voice, Newsmax, Fox, or News Nation, if they were to see federal funds, would you all support that? Yes or no?
Look at that, shaking his head.
Mr.
No.
Ullman?
No.
Yes or no?
I'd have to get back to you on that.
Oh, here we go.
In this video, Tim Pool joins in on piling on NPR after the recent congressional hearing that was attended by their CEO. Tim Pool discusses how laughable their funding and bias are now that they've been exposed. With that, let's watch Tim Pool slam NPR and its woke CEO.
NPR and PBS, you done. The GOP is going to defund the chronically biased NPR and PBS after a disastrous hearing, and everybody agrees. So this hearing that went viral has the CEO of NPR saying, we're not biased, we are not. And then you get GOP reps being like, why did you say that we're white supremacists? She's like, whoops. And then he goes, why did you call Trump a fascist and a racist? And she goes, whoops. Every step of the way. She just keeps saying, whoopsie. Now, NPR isn't directly funded by the U.S. government, but some funding does come from the government. Largely, I believe, through USAID's gutting and moves. It's the, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting? Yeah, Corporation for Public Broadcasting. I believe they are the ones who actually get the funds. So here we go. Check this out. This is the game that they're playing. It's going to get nuked. It's extremely biased. I've got some clips for you. Let's start by showing you just how screwed up this is with this testimony from Catherine Marr that's going to make you laugh your ass off.
There's no bias on NPR.
That is not a
That is not a biased statement, ma'am. That is not even both parties wrap themselves around this song every time there's a national conflict. Lee Greenwood sings it, and he does a beautiful job. But you say there is no bias in NPR.
That is that individual's opinion, and she, of course, is entitled to it. But that is not the position of NPR.
Ma'am, you said in your opening statement that you were going to be transformative. And I believe you failed to do that. Let me ask you, why did you call President Trump a fascist and a deranged racist sociopath in 2020?
Congressman, I appreciate the opportunity to address this. I regret those tweets. I would not tweet them again today. They represented a time where I was reflecting on something that I believe that the president had said rather than who he is. I don't presume that anyone is a racist.
You don't believe anyone is a racist?
I don't start by presuming anyone is a racist, sir.
Okay.
Anyone's racist. Like, even Burchett's like, some people are racist.
Ever conducted an internal review to assess whether conservative or right-leaning perspectives are fairly representative news and programming?
Congressman, what we look at is the distribution of people who listen to our work, and we can...
Blah, blah, blah. She basically then goes on to say 33% of our viewers are conservative, which is basically saying, like, yeah, they listen, but they know you're biased. Now, here's where it gets good. Check this out.
Mr. Berliner was suspended for the outside work policy, not for what he said, sir. In terms of federal funding, the federal funds go to support our operation of the public radio satellite system, which enables all of our local stations to be able to communicate information and broadcast, including...
As stated earlier, ma'am, funding is very fungible. It flows wherever it needs to. I don't buy that argument.
We do have
I wonder if any of the members of the committee...
I always forget about him, but that Tim Burchett, I really like him. Every time I see him, he seems like a legitimate guy. Arguably, I'd say this hearing is one of the funniest examples of wokeism and your past coming in to bite you in the ass, lack of accountability, flat out lying. It really had everything. I really actually enjoy a good questioning like this, but most of the time the witnesses try to dodge and obfuscate, but she answered they were just lies, which made it all that much funnier when she got called out with old tweets like 25 times. You know what's crazy, though, is I feel like people like this Catherine Marr person, when they go in front of Congress and make a fool of themselves, I feel like they usually just go away pretty quickly. Like, they're let go, they step down, they resign, or they just shut up. I saw, like, shortly after that hearing, her on a show defending everything that she said and doubling down on her answers. And it's like the lack of self-awareness or her belief that Americans are just morons and that she's going to convince them they didn't just see what they watch with their own eyes is crazy. And also, did you all hear that they looked at the contributors at NPR and their political affiliation? Of the 87 contributors, I think that number's right, 87 of them were registered Democrats. That is insane. Like, they didn't even get a conservative on accident. So here's why you know everything she said was BS. Like I said, that doesn't happen by accident. You have to go out of your way to craft a newsroom to fit your narrative by installing the right people. And every single one of them is a registered Democrat. I think she's like, we have someone that's conservative on our staff. It's like, first of all, if you had one person, that's nothing to brag about. But apparently whoever your conservative is a registered Democrat. What the hell are you talking about? Anyway, let's get back to the video.
Eddie would comment real quickly. Would you agree that Real America's Voice, Newsmax, Fox, or News Nation, if they were to see federal funds, would you all support that? Yes or no?
Look at that. Shaking his head.
Mr.
No.
Ullman?
No.
Yes or no?
I'd have to get back to you on that.
Oh,
Ma'am?
here we go.
I actually don't have an opinion about that.
Ma'am?
I don't have an opinion about that, sir. That would be Congress's decision.
Thank you, Chair Lady.
Amazing. And then, of course, you've got this other video, which is hilarious. Check this one out.
America is addicted to white supremacy.
I believe that I tweeted that, and as I've said earlier, I believe much of my thinking has evolved over the last half decade.
It has evolved. Why did you tweet that?
I don't recall the exact context, sir, so I wouldn't be able to say.
Okay. Do you believe that America believes in black plunder and white democracy?
I don't believe that, sir.
You
Don't know where
tweeted
statement
that in
comes from.
reference to a book you were reading at the time, apparently, The Case for Reparations.
I don't think I've ever read that book, sir.
You tweeted about it. You said you took a day off to fully read The Case for Reparations. You put that on Twitter in January of 2020.
Apologies, I don't recall that I did.
Okay.
I'd no doubt that.
Jeez. Of course she did. And that's why she was chosen as the president and CEO of NPR. Now, here's the game they're playing. The Corporation for Public Broadcasting, CPB, is an American publicly funded nonprofit created in 1967 to promote and help support public broadcasting. The corporation's mission is to ensure universal access to non-commercial high-quality content and telecommunication services. It does so by distributing more than 70% of its funding to more than 1,400 locally owned public radio and television stations. Shut it down. Goodbye. This is not market. These stations are only up because the government's paying for it. Look at this. Revenue, $582 million. I got a question for each of you. What could you do with $582 million? I'd imagine it's a lot. That's amazing. The CPP's annual budget is composed entirely of annual appropriation from Congress plus interest. So they're going to mention its appropriation for 2025 was $535 million, including $10 million in interest earned. The funds go to local public television stations, television programming grants, grants to radio national programming, blah, blah, blah. Efforts to defund. Here we go. They're going to say the board composition, blah, blah, blah. I don't really care. In 2004 and 05, people from PBS and NPR complained CBP was starting to push a conservative agenda. Board members replied that they were merely seeking a balance. You know what? You're right. Maybe they were seeking a conservative agenda. Here's what we'll do.
If you like watching videos like this one, like and subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. Let's get back to the video.
Shut the whole thing down. I don't know why the government is in the business of espousing radio messaging. Not interested. That should be private. They're going to mention the Public Broadcasting Act of 1967 requires CBP to operate with a strict adherence to objectivity and balance in all programs or series of programs of a controversial nature. It also requires it to regularly review national programming for objectivity and balance and to report on its efforts to address concerns about objectivity and balance. Back to the question asked by Rep. Burchett in the beginning, which I will play for you.
They represented a time where I was reflecting on something that...
You don't believe anyone is a right? Yes, conservative or right-leaning perspectives are fairly internal review to
Have you ever conducted internal review?
assess whether conservative or right-leaning perspectives are fairly representative news and programming.
Congressman, what we look at is the distribution.
$535 million this year alone for the CPB. That is true waste. What do we get for that? Does it benefit anyone, really, besides the people that work there? Even if you're a listener, and you believe that they're telling you the truth on there, even though you're unaware, they're not telling you the truth, so they're not doing you any good. $535 million. You could take the most financially illiterate human being alive that has no idea what to do with money, hand them $535 million and say, go spend this. And by accident, I really mean this, by accident, that person would do leaps and bounds more good for our country and for the taxpayers than the CPB ever could. It's literally worthless. What purpose does it serve? I think there was a time that funding these organizations made sense. They could disseminate information and news across TV and radio, maybe get news out to people that weren't as close to a metropolitan area. So I do think there was value in it. But as technology has advanced, and especially in the modern day, the way people are consuming media, it's barely on TV and radio anymore. They're getting it from the internet and various platforms, X, Twitter, YouTube, Rumble, even Instagram and Facebook. So you're spending $535 million on an antiquated and completely unnecessary and super biased means of providing news to the public. That's bananas. Anyway, let's wrap up the video.
Of people who listen to our work, and
what we look at. She's implying that they don't actually do an internal review to check for bias and objectivity, which is required under that law from 1967.
I can tell you, and I'm proud to tell you, that for our digital, our podcasts and our website, the distribution of Americans who come to NPR does reflect the political distribution of the nation. In fact, the distribution on our websites, 33% of folks who come are conservative versus 28% who are liberal, and the rest identify as independent. So the largest group is conservatives who come to NPR's websites.
So you believe that most Americans think President Trump is a fascist and deranged racist?
With all due respect, my response would have been, ma'am, the question was, have you conducted an internal review, not do you attract certain audiences? If the argument she's making is that the audience shows we are not biased, I say no, because literally every conservative thinks you are biased. It's just that conservatives actually listen to news from perspectives they don't get or don't agree with. So they're saying after the committee.
So I've harped on it for a while now, but obviously this is a ton of money. But I want to point out that oftentimes when Doge cuts are being discussed, one of the liberals' arguments is like, yeah, $535 million sounds like a lot of money, but it's a drop in the bucket compared to the deficit. It won't help. And A, you just want to slap them in the face. But B, it's like, okay, so does that mean we shouldn't keep funding it? And you do realize that we're cutting a lot of shit, not just this, right? And cumulatively, they're working towards $1 trillion cut. I mean, shit, if we find more programs like this, we'll be there in no time. Doge will be done in like a week. This is just an egregious misuse of taxpayer money to fund full-blown, make no mistake, left-wing propaganda. But we want to hear from you. What do you all think about PBS and NPR? Should the government continue to fund them, or have they overstayed their welcome? Let us know in the comments. Anyway, as always, really appreciate you watching, and we will see you in the next one.